In this video, I'm going to show you the way that I found to be the best way to crop images on Android, and we are going to be using a third-party library for this. So the reason why I'm not using the basic Android intent system, so creating a cropping intent and then starting an activity for a result, the reason I'm not using that for cropping images is because on some devices it doesn't work properly. So obviously when you're building any kind of an app, you want to do it. You want to build an app such that it's going to work on the most possible devices. And the default cropping start activity, and intent system on Android isn't really that great anyway. There's a lot of third-party libraries that do it better. So I'm going to be showing you my favorite third-party library for cropping images. It has a ton of customizability. It works great, and it works on, I've never seen it not work on a device. So definitely a great library. So on the screen here, I have a demo application. This is what we're going to be building in this video. So it's just called, the project is just Android image cropping example or cropper example. If I click this little bar here, it opens up, it starts that cropping intent. So I can now look through the phone's memory for an image to crop something. I can select an image. It then loads that image into an activity that's built into the third-party library, where now I can adjust the section I want to crop, and I can click crop up here and it will actually crop that. Now, just as a side note, there's a lot of different things you can do with this. You can rotate it, you can rotate the image, you can flip it vertically or horizontally. You can do a lot of different things. You can change this to be a circle or a square. You have to obviously specify that in the code before you launch the cropping activity. You can set aspect ratio restrictions. So like say you want to restrict it to 1920 by 1080, which would be very common. Or maybe you wanted to restrict it to a square. You would restrict the aspect ratio so that when they shrink it or when they grow it, it maintains that aspect ratio. So a lot of really cool features, and there's more than that even still, but I want to get into the code and not sit here and talk about it for too long. So let's just select the area to crop. I can crop it. That's going to get selected and then set to an image view that I have in that activity. So pretty cool, works great, and like I said, super easy to use, lots of features. Let's go take a look at the code. So here's the GitHub page for that image cropping library that I mentioned. The author of this is Arthur Hub, which is a very nice guy creating this great library for us out in London. He also has a very great README, so I love it when developers provide great documentation, and this is some prestigious documentation. It shows you a great example of how to get started and the features that you can use. Even a nice little GIF here to show you some of the things that you can do with a cat picture. So what you're gonna want to do first of all is head to this GitHub page. You can go Arthur Hub Android Image Cropper. There'll be a link in the description of this video, and scroll down to the usage section. So here we want to first of all get the dependency. So what you'll want to do is obviously copy this, go to your Android Studio project. I have a project already created here. By the way, there's nothing really special in this project. If you want, just create a brand new project. Go to File, go to new project, and just create a blank project or blank activity. That'll be fine. And then go to the build.gradle app file, which is the one I'm in here. And you can see that I pasted the dependency down here. So I just defined a version, which is 2.8 plus, and then there's the dependency, and then giving that version down there. So the second dependency I have here is glide, and obviously I need glide because if you take a look at the demo application, we are going to be displaying an image, and I always use glide whenever I'm displaying images, so that's what I did. You can get the glide dependency from the glide GitHub page, which I could also bring up here. You could just Google glide Android dependency, and you could click probably the first link, and this will take you to the GitHub page for Glide. If you scroll down, you'll see those dependencies that I have here. They're using a different version. They're using 4.10. I'm using 4.9, but it should be pretty much the same thing. So get those two dependencies before we're ready to move forward. So now that we have those dependencies, let's go back to the GitHub page for the image cropper, and let's see what's next. So again, this document is great. It takes you step by step through what you need to do. The second kind of step here is grab these permissions. We need to add those to the manifest. So I'm going to grab those, go back to Android Studio, open up the manifest, and I'm going to paste those above. And I'm also going to add internet permission. So users permission internet, because we are going to be displaying images. Oh no, we're not actually. No, we're displaying images from the phone's memory. But actually because I want to show you something else too, though, so we will add internet. Because if you're using an emulator and you don't have any images on the emulator, I also want to show you where you can go download a test image, get it on your emulator so that you have something to test on. So add internet permission, because later at the end of the video when we do testing, I will show you how to download an image and go through that process. So just make sure you add that permission also. Now let's go back to GitHub and see what's next here. So this next step here is add this line to your ProGuard config file. I don't actually know what this one does, but I'm just going to keep following the instructions and do what it tells me. So your ProGuard config file is right here, proguardrules.pro. So you want to open that up and then just paste that down below. I guess if you want more information, you could just do what they tell you up here in the ProGuard file and go to this link and look for more information on this, but I'm not really going to talk about this. This video is specific to cropping images, and I'm just following the instructions and doing what it's telling me. So let's go back to the GitHub page and do the next step. So now using the activity, so it says, so the way this works, if you look at the example project, is when you select an image to crop. So if I was to click here and select an image, what that does is it starts another activity. So this is an activity where that cropping is taking place. So because there's another activity in the project, we need to add that activity to the manifest. So I'm going to copy this line right here and go back to Android Studio, go back to the manifest, and we're just going to paste in that new activity here. I can delete this kind of comment stuff. So this will add that new activity, crop image activity, to your project so that you can actually crop an image. Now let's go back to GitHub once again, still just following the instructions. And now we're down to the actual usage. So you could read this if you want to and go through this. There's a couple different examples, one where you crop in an activity, which is the one that we are going to be doing in this video. Another one where you crop in a fragment right here. So you notice that it's different. If you're cropping something in a fragment, it's different than an activity. In the start method, you pass the context and then call this, whereas in the activity, you're just passing this. So make note, if you're using it in a fragment or in an activity, it's going to be different. And then it just says, how you can actually start cropping it. Coming down, it shows you how to get a result, and then down below it shows you a couple different ways. One, you can use this kind of image cropping, this cropping image view. I didn't actually use this myself, but I'm assuming what you do is you add this to your layout file, and it automatically has that kind of all that stuff built in. So you probably touch it, it will start the cropping activity. I'm not sure, again, I'm just guessing. You can play around with it if you want, and then it will crop the image and set the image. And then down here, it's how it shows you how to set the image. We're going to be using Glide for that, so we don't have to worry about that. And then how to get the cropped image. So just kind of some basic examples. What we're going to be doing is cropping an image in an activity and using onActivityResult to retrieve that cropped image and then set that to an image view. So let's go back to Android Studio, and I'm going to run you through this example. So in this project, I have a single activity that's going to be main activity. The layout for main activity is activity main. So I'm actually going to close all of these and go into activity main and show you that I have some code added ahead of time here for activity main. So if you look at the preview over here on the right hand side, if I was to zoom in a little bit, actually zoom out. Well, I mean, you saw the demo project. This is all it is. It's just a image view with a little text view down below that says touch to change the image. If you click this, it will launch a gallery intent. So you're looking for an image to select. Also, if I click on the image itself, it should. Oh no, I didn't set it to the image. So just the bar, if you click the bar down below, it will launch a gallery intent. So if we take a look at the layout, we just have an image view and a text view. Like I said, the image view has some constraints because it's in a constraint layout. It has an ID of image, a scale type of fit XY, and adjust view bounds set to true. So the only kind of tricky part about cropping an image and then displaying it in a text view is you have to kind of predetermine what that cropped image is going to look like in the image view, because if you're setting properties to the image view like fit XY, that's only going to look good if you know that your width is going to be at least as long as your height. And if it isn't, then you might want to select a different scale type. So that's what I mean by it's probably a good idea to know ahead of time what the aspect ratio of the image is going to be. So the ratio of the width to the height. And if you don't, then chances are, your user could select any kind of an image. And I'll just show you what I mean. So if I was to select an image, just any image, doesn't matter, and I was to select, an aspect ratio like this, which is obviously a stupid aspect ratio. Nobody would want an aspect ratio like that, but you never know. A user could use your app in any number of ways. So if they clicked that and they cropped it, it would look like this. So it wouldn't fit the whole view. It just wouldn't look good. Where as opposed to if I was to select an aspect ratio of where the width is at least as much as the height, so a square or a rectangle, that's basically it. So you can have one like this, or you can have it a square. So if I was to select something rectangular like this, then that should have actually fit the width. I'm guessing what happened there was because the previous image didn't fit the width, and then I selected one that did fit the width, it screwed it up. Because let's see what happens if I select a square. So if I was to select something that was like a square, I wonder if it would do the same thing. Yeah, so like if I was to close this and then relaunch, so let's see here. This was Android image cropper. So if I open this up and I was to reselect something, let's do a rectangle, crop that. So now this should fit the width. Yeah, so you see what I mean by this? There's strange things that can happen if you don't know ahead of time what the image is going to look like, and then even stranger things can happen if you allow them to crop something that doesn't fit the criteria that you wanted, and then later they change it to something that does. You still get the behavior. You still get behavior that you don't want. So that's why it's a good idea to set constraints on things like the aspect ratio when you're cropping the image. That way you know that they can't screw it up, basically. And I'm going to be showing you how to do that in this video. So yeah, layout's pretty simple. You can go to my GitHub page. I have a page for this project if you want to copy this layout instead of typing it out yourself. I'll just go to it really quick. So if you go to my GitHub page, there'll be a link in the description of this video, by the way. You can just search my repositories for Android image cropper example. Go here, select the master branch, and then copy the layout from there. Like I said, there will be a link in the description of this video. All right, so now let's go to main activity and let's actually write the code for this. Let's get started with this. So the first thing we want to do is we need a method for choosing an image from memory, because that's the first step, right? The first step is, the application launches, there's no image. We need to be able to detect a click and then launch this intent to select an image from memory. So let's create a function for that. I'll call it, it'll be private fun pick from gallery, I'll call it. This will create an intent. So value intent equals a new intent. This is going to be intent action underscore pick. That's to choose something from the gallery. I want to go media store. So media store dot images dot media dot external content URI. External URI. There we go. Now I want to do intent dot type equals image /star. So that means any image. Doesn't matter what type. Next, you want to select type a MIME type. So MIME type equals array of, we want to do image /JPEG, comma, and then the next is image /PNG, and next image /JPG. So those are all of the different image types. Now intent.put extra, we want to do intent.extra MIME types, and then specify those MIME types variable that we just created. I want to add an S here for MIME types just to keep it consistent with the source code that I have. Intent.set flags. This will be intent.flag grant URI read permission. So right there, URI read permission, and then start activity for result, pass an intent, and then do gallery request code. So we need to specify this still. This is going to be a constant that we're going to capture or look for in onActivityResult when we actually launch this intent. So gallery request code. Okay, I'm just going to create it. I'm going to go up to the top and do private value gallery request code equals 1, 2, 3, 4. So nothing fancy here. All it is when we start this activity and we check for the result in onActivityResult, we need a code to look for so that we know what we're looking for. We know that this is the result from the pick gallery request. So now I want to attach an onClick listener, update text view, I believe. So that's just that text view that's inside the layout. I want to set an onClick listener and go pick from gallery. So calling that that gallery intent and launching that. So now that we have a way to choose an image from the gallery, we need a way to retrieve that image. So we're going to be using onActivityResult for that. So Control O, so press Control O, ActivityResult, onActivityResult right there. Now inside here we want to check for if that gallery request code that we specified at the top. So I can say when the request code, so request code, when the request code is a gallery request code, then we know that we have a result from choosing an image from memory. So if the result code equals activity.result OK, then we know that everything was successful. Otherwise, we know that something went wrong. So I can say else, we can just print something to the log. You know, I need to create a tag for debugging. So I'm writing log t. You probably won't have a template built for that, so you'll have to write this out manually. So you'll have to go, you know, private value tag equals app debug. You'll have to do that and write that out. You probably won't have a template for log t, just so you know. So writing that out, now we have a log down here that's going to print out that error to the log. So image selection error, couldn't select that image from memory. Nothing fancy, just to let us know that something went wrong. So now inside of here, if the result is okay, we know that we actually have something. So we can go data.data, that retrieves the data from the intent. Got to add a question mark there because that value is nullable. I want to do question mark dot let. So now if this, you can see that we have a URI that's passed to the Lambda here. So we go data question mark let. That means that this URI will not be null. If this code inside here is executed, it means that this is not null. In that case, I want to launch image crop and pass the URI. And this is a method that we haven't built yet. So I'm going to click Alt Enter on there and go create function launch image crop, and it's going to pass a URI as input here. And I don't want to return an integer. I don't want to return anything. So now inside of this launch image crop is where we launch the crop intent, I guess you would say, or that crop activity that's inside of the third-party library. So you could actually refer to the GitHub page if you want, but I'm going to show you everything you need to know. You want to write crop image.activity. Inside activity, you want to pass the URI. So that's the one that we retrieved from selecting an image from memory. I want to go set guidelines. Setting guidelines, just so you know what that will do, if I pull the demo here, it adds guidelines to the crop. So it adds these guidelines here, the white box basically. So I want to add guidelines and go crop image view dot guidelines and set those to on. The next property is the aspect ratio. So I can go set aspect ratio to 1920 by 1080. That's a pretty common aspect ratio. What that means is basically the aspect ratio will be restricted to what we're cropping. And I think it's better to show you than to describe that behavior. So when we run it, I'll point that out and show you what I mean. You can also set a crop shape. So set crop shape. You can do crop image view dot crop shape. And then you can choose whatever shape. There's an oval or a rectangle. So basically a circle or an oval or a rectangle or a square. By default, it is already a rectangle. So if you already want it to be a rectangle, you don't technically need to call set crop shape. But I just want to show you just so it's present in the source code so you have something to refer to. So setting that to a rectangle, which would technically do nothing because by default it's already a rectangle, but just to show you. So that's going to be all the properties. Now we need to just call start and pass this for the activity context. And again, I want to mention that if you use this in a fragment, this will be different. If you take a look at the GitHub page once again for this, for the image cropper, the example here says if you're using it in a fragment, this is how you have to call start. So just keep that in mind if you are going to be using this in a fragment. So that's going to launch our image cropping intent and launch that image cropping activity. Now we need to retrieve a result from that and then set it to our image view. So we're going to come up into our onActivity for result again, and we're going to add a new case for that result. So crop image activity request code is the one that we are looking for. Inside here, I can then get the result. So value result equals crop image dot get activity result, and then pass the data from the onActivity result data. Now inside here, I can check the request code, or sorry, the result code. So if the result code equals activity.result okay, then we know everything is fine. Otherwise, we know that something happened. So we can actually check for a specific error with this kind of intent. We can do if the result code equals crop image activity result error code. So that's a specific error code that's associated with this cropping intent. And then we can just kind of log that. So I can say, crop error, and I can print that error message. So $, and then add result dot error. That's fine. So there, that will then print the error to the log, and we can see kind of what happened. So now if this was successful, we want to set the image. So I'm going to call a method named setImage and then pass result.uri. And we haven't built this method yet, so that is what we're going to do next. So Alt Enter on that. I'm going to create a function named setImage. It's going to take a URI as input, and this can be nullable. So maybe what we'll do actually is we will remove this nullable check, and I'll check for null right here. So result.uri, if this is not null, then we will set the image. So I'll just pass this up here, and you can either pass it right here, which references implicitly the URI, or you can specify, URI into the lambda and then pass this in right here. No big deal, same kind of thing. Now inside here, we want to use glide to set the image. So glide.width. I'm sure lots of you, if not all of you, have used glide before. Getting that glide import, want to reference the context, and then want to load the resource, which is a URI in this case. And what do we want to load it into? We want to load it into our image view. Now image view ID is image, so just loading that in. So that should do it. That is all we need to do. At this point, we should be good to run it and take a look. So I'm going to press the play button up here, and we'll see what we're dealing with. So here we have the application on the screen. I have minimized Android Studio because hopefully we don't have any errors in this process. So now before I click here and we choose an image, I want to actually show you, those of you who don't have any images on your emulator, how to get an image on your emulator. So I'm just going to launch a new Google Chrome, just new Google Chrome. No thanks, leave me alone. You can see I have a bunch of stuff open. I might as well just close these. So where I like to get my test images from is I like to go to reddit.com and go to the subreddit known as earth porn. So you can just search Reddit earth porn in Google, and all this is it's a bunch of really nice kind of nature images, and I really like this stuff. I always kind of set them as the backgrounds on my phone. It's just something that I like to do. And you could download the Reddit app, as you can see down here, if you wanted to, but I'm just going to click continue and use Google Chrome for now. So select any of these images. I'm just going to choose, any one. Preferably get one that has a resolution that has a width that's longer than the height. If you go back to the page that we were just at, you can see that this one is that. It has a larger width than height, so that one should be fine. Let's click on here. If I hold down the left click, I can open this in a new tab and make sure that I switch over to that tab now. And then here's that image all by itself. If I hold left click again, I can go download image. That will download the image onto my emulator. Now let's go and open the image cropper again. So opening up the image cropper, you can see that if I pull this down, that image was downloaded. Now let's click on the text view, click on the download folder, and then there's that image that I just downloaded. So now we can crop this. So the first thing I want to point out is this restricted aspect ratio. So because we set that aspect ratio limitation, I can't shrink this to any aspect ratio other than what I specified, which is 1920 by 1080. And I think this is a pretty good standard behavior. You could do a square. I think a square would be fine too. But you generally, unless you have limitations on your server that's going to be checking for aspect ratio, I think in general this is a good one to use. But like I said, you might be doing some kind of custom behavior where you're uploading this to a server. Then that server would check the aspect ratio and make sure that it's not something stupid like a long rectangle that has a very low width but a very large height. That's generally not images that you want. But if you're just kind of selecting something, like I said, I think in general it's good to limit the aspect ratio, because that way when you build the application, if that's the only place they can get images from or load images to, it makes a much better application, because you know what those images are going to look like. You can plan ahead of time in your code to only kind of support those specific aspect ratios, which usually end up looking a lot better overall in your application. So, okay, enough talking. Let's take a look at the other features. We can rotate it. We can flip it vertically, flip it horizontally, do all these things, whatever. And the last thing is to actually crop it. So if I click crop, that's now going to select that and crop that image. And now you could do whatever you wanted with it, upload it to your server, display it in your app, whatever you wanted to do. So like I said, there's a lot of third-party libraries out there that can crop images, but I find this one to be, this is the best one that I've come across, so I definitely recommend it. And also, like I said at the beginning of the video, you can use the default system, the default Android intent start activity system for cropping images, but it doesn't work on some devices. So I highly recommend using a third-party library. And this one has a ton of stars. You can see this guy is, he's not actually really maintaining it. 11 months ago, looks like he updated it, but he's not doing a lot of, oh yeah, last year, so that's not that bad. So he is maintaining it, and as far as I can tell, I've never had any issues. So definitely a library you want to check out. If you liked this video and you want to see more high quality videos like this one, I highly recommend going to my website and checking that out. I have a ton of free courses as well as paid courses. The stuff I focus on my website is kind of the newest Android stuff, the newest and latest and greatest Android native stuff that comes out these days. Mostly I focus on Jetpack and architecture, so things like MVI architecture, MVVM architecture, the repository pattern. Those are things I've been focusing on these days. The latest project that I worked on is an app that interacts with a REST API on a server that I built for you guys. So if you want to practice your REST API interaction skills, building a database cache, using Kotlin, interacting with a REST API with retrofit, displaying images, managing user sessions, so like creating a session manager class to manage whether a user is logged in or logged out, all that kind of stuff, then I highly recommend checking out my courses. If you come here and you don't really know where to start, just scroll down to the home screen and there's a list of courses here that I recommend. This order is generally good if you're a beginner. Start with this course if you're a beginner, kind of work your way down. And if you're already kind of a more advanced user, I guess I would say, or you're employed as an Android developer already, I would say start here. Start at Model View Intent Architecture and then Powerful Android Apps with Jetpack Architecture. Those are two courses that you will definitely want to check out. And if you want to know a little bit more about unit testing, I have a unit testing course right here that you can check out. So those are my courses. If you want to see what people are saying about them, you can go to go to testimonials, and I have, let's see how many testimonials. There's 291 testimonials with an average rating of 4.99. You can check out what some people are saying about my courses. That's all for this video. I will see you in the next one.